Hi, this is Chef Jeremy from Kirkwood Community College. For today's Culinary series video, we'll be fabricating a whole chicken into 8 pieces. First thing I want to do is have a cutting board that's big enough for the chicken. I want a flexible boning knife. By that I mean there's some flex to it, which will follow the contours of the protein itself. Be sure to have a tray of ice with you, and also have some quat sanitizer and maybe some soapy water for sanitation purposes. For the fabrication itself, the first thing I want to do is set the chicken upright and take the wishbone out. So you're going to start with the neck cavity here, and you're going to remove the wishbone. You'll take the tip of your knife, and you can kind of see the contours of the wishbone laying just underneath the flesh right here by the neck. What I need to do though is take the tip of the knife, work my way back and forth on each side of that wishbone to kind of expose it, if you will. Now this is going to take some doing. This takes a couple of minutes to work that wishbone out, because what you don't want to do is pull a bunch of meat out with the wishbone. So patience here is key to get on either side of the wishbone and underneath the wishbone. And the wishbone itself attaches to the breast right about here. So what I want to do is take my fingers, just kind of try to work any meat I can away from the wishbone before I pull it out. Now if a little bit of meat comes with the wishbone, so be it. It's not a big deal. See how the wishbone's coming out? I detached at the front of the breast. Pull it backwards towards the neck, and there's a natural joint in there that just detaches. So I remove the wishbone first. Now, I mean, you don't have to remove the wishbone first. You can still fabricate the chicken into 8 pieces without removing the wishbone first, but I'll show you why I like it right here. Any bones, as I'm going through, I'll save for my chicken stock, because that's always in high demand in a kitchen, that's for sure. All right, fabrication-wise, what I want to do is lay the whole chicken with its legs pointing towards me. And the important thing too is to have the breast side up, not back side up, okay? Even though we are going to take a look at the back side here in a minute. There are 2 little thigh tenders right here. You can kind of see how fleshy they are on the back. These 2 little thigh tenders we're going to remove here in a couple minutes. These are also known as the oyster, oftentimes. So what we're going to do here, once we go ahead and remove that thigh, we're going to take those thigh tenders out with it. All right, so start on the front side of the bird, and what I want you to do is find the breastbone, also known as the keel bone. And I'm right-handed, so I need to be on the left-hand side of the keel bone. The reason I do that is as I fabricate right-handed, I want to be able to peel the chicken off into my left hand. It's just a natural feel. So let's be on the left-hand side of that breastbone. Let's try to get as close to it as we can. We don't want to leave too much meat on the carcass. So right there on the keel bone is my first incision. So you're only going to be able to come down about an inch and a quarter or so until you hit the rest of that breastbone and the rib bones in there. So at that time I need to utilize the flex of my knife and follow the contours of that breastbone. Follow the contours of the ribs. Try to be right up against those ribs. We don't want to leave too much meat on the carcass. What I'm looking for down in here is this first wing joint right here. So as I come down, separate the meat, you'll often see several little tendons you have to detach. Okay, so let's detach those tendons, and that'll expose this little ball and socket in here. You see that little white ball? And you see that socket? Okay, that white ball needs to go this way with the breast. We need to remove the wing and the breast in one shot in order to make a supreme airline breast. So there's a lot of tendons you got to snap. Snapping those tendons also has a tendency for you to sometimes lose the chicken tender off of the breast. Sometimes that chicken tender falls off, sometimes it stays right on. But let's go ahead and detach. I mean, once you reach that ball in the socket, all you need to do is come straight down and detach. I mean, you almost don't even need a knife. You can almost just pull. Okay, so let's go ahead and take, and this is just skin. Let's go ahead and detach that wing and breast from the carcass. That way it's not flopping around. And we can set it over there in the ice for the time being. The next step then is to remove the leg and thigh from the carcass. So in order to do that, we need to detach that thigh bone from the carcass. You can do it one of two ways. You can come with your hand and pop it out this way, or you can flip the little guy over and use your thumb and pop that thigh joint out. Just kind of move the leg and thigh towards the carcass. That way when you flip it back around, look, you've exposed that bone. And that's where you cut. Now I mentioned, and this is what I've been doing lately, is trying to save that oyster. You want to get that little thigh tender to come with the actual thigh cut. Okay, you see the little thigh tender right there in the cavity that it was sitting in? We want this to go with the thigh for sure. We don't want to lose that. That's nice and tender. So let's flip them back over and let's get in between that thigh bone and the carcass, and let's go at an angle. We don't want to, again, we don't want to lose any meat. If I come straight down, I'm going to lose some of that meat. So let's get in there. Let's go at a bit of an angle towards the carcass. That way, we don't lose all. If I would have came straight down right here, I would have lost all of that meat. So this way, at an angle, you can utilize that meat too. All right, well, I've got the leg and thigh detached from the carcass. Now I want to work on the other half and get that detached. So let's put this in the ice. For the second half of the chicken, what I like to do is take the leg, and instead of facing me this time, let's have the leg facing away. The reason I do this, again, because I'm right-handed, I want to fabricate with my right hand and peel the meat off into my left hand. So again, just like last time, let's be on the left-hand side of that keel bone. We're just following the contours. So look at that, nice clean keel bone. And on this naked side, you can kind of see the contours a little bit better. That's what we're fighting with on the other side too. And one more time, what we're looking for down here is that kind of white ball, that ball and socket joint once we get down there. And again, there's some tendons you got to kind of snap. I mean, you don't need a lot of pressure. You don't need to use a lot of force with your knife. Right? Let the knife do its work, assuming that the knife's sharp, and it should be. And we're going to try to expose that little ball joint. Here he is right there. There's that joint by my finger. So you remember what to do here. Just come straight down. Detached from the carcass. And again, like I said, this is just skin, so we can cut right through the skin. That way this thing's not flopping around, this wing and breast. Let's put that aside. Now, just like the other side with the thigh, my next step is, all I'm doing here is kind of peeling different skin and connective tissue so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, I'm not making any cut, nothing special. I'm just kind of exposing it so I can actually see. So you can do one of the two things, just pop it out this way, or you can flip it around, like I said, and pop it out that way. But you're looking to expose that bone, right? So just pop that out of the socket. Again, on the other side, let's find that tender that we marked earlier. Make sure that goes with it. And then on this side, I want to be between the bone and the carcass, and again, at an angle. Let's lose the least amount of meat as possible. And look at that beauty. So that's what you're left with carcass-wise. Nice and clean. Remove the breast portion. You can see where the cavities were from that tender. Safe to say that we utilize most of the meat off this thing, but of course keep this for chicken stock. Often utilized in most kitchens, so always save the chicken bones. We'll put that in there with the stock bones. From here, It doesn't matter which one you start with. You can start with leg and thigh. You can start with breast and wing if you'd like. Let's start with breast and wing. The first thing I want to do, my main goal here is to get it a supreme airline breast. So what that means is that this first joint of the wing is still attached to the breast. So this wing goes with the breast, right? Here's what I like to do for Frenching. At this point, of course, you know what Frenching is. It's where you hold the knife towards yourself and scrape away from yourself on the bone to kind of expose the bone and scrape the flesh to one side. But it looks like this is really meaty. It looks like this is really bony. So I'm going to pick this spot right here. All I'm doing is working my knife around the bone. Mutilate, see, that's that Frenching method. Knife towards yourself, scrape away. Expose. Once it's exposed, you can grab the rest of the wing, twist and pull. And off comes that joint perfectly Frenched. So you don't have to mess around with scraping the rest of this joint right here. It's attached and it's perfectly Frenched. And we're gonna go skinless. I mean, you can leave the skin on if you want. It's personal preference. If you're gonna pan fry or deep fry or something like that, of course, you're gonna, leave the skin on. For our utilization in labs, we'll go skinless. We don't know exactly what we're using them for yet. So this piece is all done. Fat, you can just put that in your compost bucket or your trash. There's no sense in putting the fat in with the stock because you're gonna end up skimming that later on when you pull it out of the cooler and putting it in the trash anyways. Okay, so that leaves us with that wing flap. So with the wing flap, let's put him on ice. With the wing flap, we're gonna make like a drumette. It's like a lollipop. This first wing tip, this is called the wing tip. We don't want that, there's no meat on it. So what I want you to do is just lightly score. Lightly score until you find that joint. Remove. So with the wingtip, in with the stock. I want you to do two things then to make that lollipop. I want you to lay that wing flap like this. Find this little triangle piece of fat, right? See that triangle piece? There's going to be two bones in here. There's a thick bone and a thin bone. We want to remove that skinny bone and make the drumette out of the thicker bone. So what we need to do is find that little triangle flap, lay the knife somewhat flat, score until you have exposed that skinny bone. So I can see the skinny bone now. Let me take my knife, go on one side, go on the other side, one side, the other. Let's really expose it so we can grab onto it. And once we can grab onto it, we can get our knife underneath it and come one way and just pull it out the other way. And that bone's removed. So put that in with the stock if you'd like. Probably not going to add that much flavor. And now we need to French. Scrape this towards us a little bit to get it started. Okay, and I'm not using too much pressure. Just give it a little bit of a scrape to get it started. Once it's started, you have something to grab onto. So once I have something to grab onto, I can turn it around. And then I can use that Frenching technique all the way down and make a little lollipop. So these would make a good hors d'oeuvre, maybe deep fry them for an hors d'oeuvre. They're ugly little critters, but we'll set him aside for now, and then we'll work on the leg and thigh. There's a natural separation with the leg and thigh. See this striation of fat right here? This is kind of nature telling you where to cut. That's the separation of the thigh and the leg. I would maybe err on the left-hand side, or in other words, err on the leg side. And I'm not using a ton of force, I just want to expose that joint. Once it's exposed, let's go ahead and cut straight down. See, look, there was that natural joint right there. See, that looks familiar, doesn't it? Supermarket, right? Starting to look familiar. With this thigh, I would like it boneless, skinless. I might use it to grind up for consommé, might use it for a paella dish, I might use it for several other applications. So let's go kind of neutral, middle of the road. Let's just go ahead and remove the bone and the skin. You don't have to, depending on what you want to do, what you want to make out of it. But for this application, let's go ahead and remove the bone, remove the skin. Boneless, skinless thigh. And then with the leg, I mean, you can trim some of this excess fat that's a little excessive. Again, the fat can just go right into the compost or the trash. Meat stops right about there, bone starts there. So if you want to, you can French these legs. You don't have to. I just want to show you the technique. One of the reasons why oftentimes I don't French them is because of all these little leg tendons that hang out. And those are they're a little bit ugly. So French down towards the end of the leg, and at this point, to get it off the kneecap, all you got to do is use your thumb. So use your thumb and pull. And you have a perfectly French leg if you choose to do so. And again, some of these tendons might be hanging out, so be it. All right, let's do the same thing on the other side of that chicken. Breast and drumette. Again, I start because I want that first joint to be on, that supreme airline breast, right? So it looks like it stops being meaty right about there. Take my knife, move around the bone to expose it. Once it's completely exposed, all you got to do is take both hands and back and forth and pull, and you got a perfectly Frenched airline breast. The only other thing to do would be to skin it. All right, remember the wing flap drumette, what we need to do is remove that wing tip. There's no meat there. Let's just kind of score at first to just expose that joint. Once we've exposed it, then we can cut straight down. And one of the reasons why I score at first is that way I don't commit my knife and potentially dull my knife. So put that tip in with the stock, and remember, to make the little lollipop, we got to find that triangle piece of fat on the wing flap. And remember that there's two bones that live inside of here. There's a thicker bone and a thinner bone. On the triangle side is where you'll find the thinner bone. And what you got to do is lay your knife somewhat flat, score on this side until you've exposed that little skinny bone. Once you see it, and you can see it right here, once you see that bone, score on either side. We really want to expose it, that way we can grab a hold of it, get our knife underneath, come that way, come this way, and it's removed. So the last step then would be to, if you recall, to French this wing tip all the way down to make that lollipop. And again, just to get it started, I'm Frenching towards myself until I have something to grab onto. Once I have something to grab onto, then I can flip it back around and French using the proper technique. And I have a wing flap drumette. And then recall on the leg and thigh, you're looking simply for that little natural striation of fat. That's that natural separation, air on the leg side. And there that joint is. So all I got to do is come come straight down. Leg and a thigh. Remember, with the thigh, I want boneless, skinless. And you might be asking yourself, why is this chicken as small as it is? This is a organic, no hormone, no antibiotic chicken from a farm called Bell and Evans in Pennsylvania. So they tend to raise slightly smaller chickens. Remove the bone. Remove the skin. The last thing you got to check on the thigh, of course, was any of that cartilage in there. And interestingly enough, I don't see it this time. That's because I removed it all in one shot with the bone. With the leg, again, it's optional whether or not you want to French. If you do, just come around with your knife to expose the bone. Once it's exposed, you can use your thumb just to pop off that kneecap. Trim excess fat if you'd like. Two boneless, skinless, supreme airline breasts, two boneless, skinless thighs, two French legs, and then the lollipop drumettes. So that's fabricating a whole chicken into 8 pieces.